Okay, class, thanks for working really hard on your do now. We're gonna go ahead and review our do now together. We looked at these two pictures, and as we can see in picture one, it's Copenhagen in 1942. Citizens are just riding their bikes home from work. Seems like a normal day. And then in picture two, that's Copenhagen in 1944, when Nazi soldiers marched down the street. Now, I want advisors just to pause the video really quick, and I want to hear out from your scholars what you know about Nazis. Maybe you're familiar with a lot of history, your parents have discussed this with you, and you know what Nazis are, and maybe this is something that's new to you. So advisors, go ahead and pause and just gauge where your students are at. Okay, so we're going to definitely get more into this topic in the book, but just so you kind of have a basic background knowledge, Nazis were German soldiers in the 1940s who worked for the dictator Hitler. Okay, these were not kind people, right? These were people who went to cities and terrorized people who didn't look the way that they wanted them to, who didn't practice the religion they wanted them to. They killed a lot of citizens who were really innocent. They took a lot of citizens who practiced the Jewish faith to places called concentration camps where they were separated from their families, forced to do hard labor, and some of them even killed. This was a very, very tragic time in history. And so I'm not going to get into all the background today, but I want you to know that these Nazi soldiers are not nice people, and they are terrorizing this community. Okay, so let's look at our questions together, all right? All right, we looked at the two images, right? We know this one, it looks pretty calm, right? People are just riding their bikes. It's like a normal day. They're getting home from work. Whereas this one, right, there's soldiers marching in the street. I know for me, if I, was just walking like my dog, or I was coming home, I saw a bunch of like soldiers walking the street, I would be a little bit terrified, right? So I imagine that might be how Anne-Marie and Ellen and Kirsty are feeling. So how are these images similar? How are these images similar? Go ahead and call on a scholar to share. How are those two images pretty similar to each other? Yeah, right? They're both like images of a normal day, right? Or something, that might be kind of normal for the time periods. Okay, they're both in the streets of Copenhagen. But how are these images different? Teachers, call on a scholar who saw like really exemplary work from. How are these two images different? Yeah, you see in the first picture, right? It's a pretty calm day. People might not feel threatened just going home from work. Whereas in picture number two, there's clearly like a war going on, right? Or there's a threatening presence in the street. And so kind of getting into our next questions, keeping that in mind. If I saw people in picture one, I would feel pretty calm, right? Just going home from school, no big deal. But if I saw people in picture two, I might feel really scared because I don't know if those soldiers are going to harm me. I don't know what they're looking for. And I know for me, like, I just get really scared when I see a bunch of people walking together and they have weapons, right? It feels really threatening. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make sure we've got those answers in our Nearpod slide, and then we're going to move on to vocab. All right, for vocab today, y'all, obviously have these with me, but you also can just follow along on your slide too. The first word that we're going to talk about is contempt. Now, contempt means the feeling that someone or something is not worthy of respect. For example, the reporter could not keep the contempt from his voice as he described the man's horrible crimes. And I included this picture of Dr. House glaring at someone, right? Not impressed with them. He obviously is having contempt for somebody nearby. The next word is sneering. To express dislike and disrespect in a very open way. Go ahead and say that with me. Sneering. 3 times. Sneering, sneering, sneering. Okay? The sneering villain made fun of the child's cries for her mother. Now, when I think sneering, I think Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter, right? He always sees Harry Potter going through some trouble, and he's like, Potter, oh, you're ridiculous, right? He's very disrespectful. And our last word is civilized. Polite, reasonable, and respectful. My mom told me to stop hitting my brother so we could have a civilized conversation. And so I put a picture of, this is Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, and Donald Trump. They're shaking hands, right? They're trying to have a conversation. You see they're not yelling at each other. They're simply greeting each other in a civilized way, even though they might disagree on many different topics. So let's say that with me. Civilized, civilized, civilized. All right, I think we're ready to put some of our knowledge to the test. So on your own, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to play these matching games. So you're going to match the word to the definition in your own Nearpod slide. And then you've got a vocab quiz that your teacher is going to have you do on your own. When you're done with that, we're going to get into my favorite part of the lesson, which is reading, number of the stars, and annotating. I'll see you there.